Hi, welcome back to the channel. I'm Michelle, and today I'm going to be talking about how I balance it all. How do I balance homeschooling and making sure my house is clean and making sure my kids are fed and making sure I still have time for myself at the end of the day? How do I do all those things? Because I did get a question in the comments about how to set routines, how to set schedules, and I really sat down and thought about it because I'm a very scheduled routine person. How do I really actually do these things, and how can I explain it to you that I do it? Because I do think it is helpful finding that balance. And of course that balance is going to look different depending on, what stage in life you are, how old your kids are. It's going to look different for every single person. So I'm not saying you should replicate exactly what I'm doing, but I was hoping that by showing you by example of what I do, that can help you kind of facilitate your routine or your schedules and how you're going to personally balance it. Give you an example of my experiences and what I do. So the first one I'm going to talk about is homeschool, because that's a big one. Homeschool is a priority. It's something that should be getting done every day. And for me, I have 3 kids. I have a 11-year-old, an 8-year-old, and an almost 5-year-old. And they're at very different levels in a homeschooling. So I have 6th grade, 2nd/3rd grade, and kindergarten. And in order to hit all my kids' curriculum and the things they're supposed to be doing every day, to make forward progress in their learning, I have to have a schedule, because that's a lot of things to juggle just homeschooling wise. Just because the varying ages of my kids, there's not a lot we can do together. All their independent subjects, math, language arts, have to be done at their grade level. So in order to get those things done, I have to have a schedule in place or they won't get done. So I'm going to take you through and show you kind of how I overview a schedule and how I break it down. After that, I'm going to show you kind of how I clean, my cleaning routine, what I do for that, how I meal plan, and how I still have time for myself after all those things are done. So I'm going to take you to my computer first for homeschooling scheduling, because that's honestly how I produce my homeschool schedule. That's how I start. I save everything in OneNote. It's great because you can see year by year what you've used, but I'm going to show you how I do that. This is OneNote, and as you can see here, I have every single homeschool year on here, which is really helpful because I can go back and look and see what we've covered, and I can see what I've used for my oldest if that's something I want to use for my youngest. So I do think this type of record keeping is really helpful because it helps you track what you've used, what you could potentially use for kids in the past. I do have a tab on here of ideas. So this is kind of where if I see something on YouTube or I come across a curriculum I think would be really cool, I can insert it in that little area, that little tab, and I can look back and see, okay, what things have I wanted to implement? And I'll often do that for summer. As you can see here, for summer, I have a bunch of ideas for what we do during summer, because that's kind of where I do the other subjects. So I want to show you really quick how I do it. So I start out with subjects, basic, language arts, math. So English language arts, math. This is my 3rd grader, what I'm brainstorming for next year. So I literally just write language arts. I write down the things she'll be doing, all about reading level 4, handwriting without tears. She started Michael Clay Thompson, the grammar level. I'm hoping to do Lit House Learning with her, and then maybe into IEW. I'll start all about spelling 1 and 2 with her next year. And again, this is things I've used in the past, so I can look back and see what I used for my oldest, but this is also a different child, so you can see I'm going in a different direction in some areas with her. But I can easily, bam, 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 put down my subject, what curriculum I'm going to plug in for that subject. Math is just a continuation. She'll be doing Math A, or 3A, and Math 3B next year. Spanish, she'll do Song School Spanish. You can see here I have some ideas of Spanish once she finishes Song School Spanish. That's, the other ideas category, things I've come across. Then I have group subjects. Science, what I'm going to be using for her. History, social justice. I have extracurriculars over here. So just laying this out in a format kind of helps me see how her year is going to be. And then I will take it and I will bring it over to this inserted table. And again, you will see this on all of my kids. This is my oldest right now. I lay out this, I just copy and paste it to the next one, because after figuring out the main subject areas we're covering and figuring out what curriculum I'm going to be using for those areas, my next step is to plug those things in, because I don't want to order curriculum unless I have an idea of how it's going to fit in our schedule, because that saves you from buying too much curriculum, and that saves you from buying the shiny new curriculum Don't buy something unless it's got a place in your schedule first. So again, I just copy and paste this every single year, and it does adjust over the years, but the main components stay the same. Math will always be there. Math skills is Math Mammoth. Handwriting, all about reading level 4. She'll be doing Lit House Learning next year instead of core knowledge. We're going to be doing Michael Clay Thompson 3 days a week. That gives us all about spelling. And again, this might change. This is me just brainstorming. So when I do my, next year picks and schedule and everything, this could look different. But this is how I brainstorm. This is how I get it down. And I do think having it on OneNote is helpful because you can edit it and go back. You don't have to worry about losing a piece of paper over time. And when my youngest son, my 5-year-old, gets to this level, I can look back and see exactly what I did for my 8-year-old at that time when he's 8. So, and then I always highlight group subjects. And then any things I want to remember, I put a little star in there for. But after I plug in all that information, I get a general idea of what her day is going to look like, which helps me, kind of gauge how much, how little, when to make adjustments, knowing on, her stamina, because she is 8, and I always do it by seasons. So you'll see fall, and then we'll have a winter one, and then we'll have a spring, and then we'll have a summer. And I break it up like that, so into different seasons. And then I take these schedules and I use Canva and I create schedules for them that are printed out and put on our wall, and that becomes their finalized schedule. But this is how I very easily put together their schedules. I pick out the subject areas I want to cover. I plug in the curriculum that I want to use, and that's based on previous experience. Again, looking back to see what we've used previous years, what I still have from previous years. And sometimes going in a different direction depending on the kid. Plug in the information, plug in the curriculum, then come over here. And again, you can insert this. You can make this in OneNote, plug in what that schedule is going to look like. And then you can, of course, make adjustments. I've done that over the years where I've started with this and we've made adjustments. That's completely fine. But having a base plan, I think, is really helpful. Knowing where you're heading, how things are going to fit, and really gauging to see what your child's day is going to look like. But also for them, they can see how their day is going to. Because especially with my soon-to-be 7th grader next year, she can have input on, what she wants to do first. And she can help create that schedule. Well, with my 8-year-old, I tend to create it. And you can see it says need to edit. That's letting me know that this is not the finalized schedule, that this is something I'm working on. That's a quick overview about how I make a homeschool schedule. So that's the first thing I do. I make that homeschool schedule. I do it for each of my kids. They each have their own schedule. I print them. They're on the wall. Everybody knows what they're going to do. But that helps with the flow and how everything goes. And it also helps with the consistency. If we have a plan and we have the curriculum, everything's ready, then we can just go. So that is homeschooling. And I do want to make sure I point out that I do plan prep time in that area, that every Saturday I'm looking over especially math and language arts to make sure I'm prepared to teach for the coming week. And then we do a Sabbath schedule, so we do 6 weeks on, sometimes 7, 8 weeks on, and then a week off. That week off, I'm prepping things for the next chunk, 6, 7, 8 weeks. So I'm printing anything, I'm reading over any material I have to read over, making sure we have the supplies for science. I'm doing that teacher prep, and it's scheduled in as part of my homeschool as well. And that kind of helps you, like I said, that when it's Monday morning, we pick up and go because everything is ready for us and I'm already prepared to teach. So that's homeschooling. Quick overview of how I create a homeschool schedule, put it on our wall, how we follow it. Next would be cleaning, because great, you got homeschooling done, but what about everything else in your life, right? Because it's often, you'll do one thing really well and everything else will fall. And again, this is just how I work, and what works for me and my family might not exactly work perfectly for yours, but I'm hoping it gives you some ideas. Cleaning. I do have a video, which I'll link up above, about zone cleaning. So my house is broken up into different zones, and each month I focus on a specific zone. So one will be kitchen. A kitchen is its zone in itself because it's messy, and these include deep cleaning projects like vacuuming out and wiping the kitchen cabinets because they get gross. And crummy somehow crumbs always end up in the silverware drawer. But things like that. So it's not just everyday cleaning, but it's deeper projects too. So theoretically, over time, your entire house will be deep cleaned, and you'll never have to do like spring cleaning. And it's worked. It's worked really well for me for the last few years we've used it. So you have 20 minutes each day that you spend working on this list of things. And in that video, I do link the zone cleaning because it gives you a list, and it gives you blank if you want to make your own, because I have adjusted the list over the years to meet the needs of my family and also the abilities, skill levels of my kids, because they do help with that. They do have chores that they are responsible for, which is important too. You should not be the only one maintaining your house. Now, even if you have toddlers, they are capable of helping with things. My 5-year-old, he rinses his plate and puts it in the dishwasher. That's one of the tricks that all the kids, when they're done with their dishes, whether it be breakfast, lunch, or dinner, they rinse it off, put it directly in the dishwasher. That way, I don't have a sink full of dishes that I have to tend to. They're fully capable of doing those things. My 5-year-old can restock the toilet paper, those things. Even little kids, they like to wipe windows. My youngest, when she was little, or my youngest daughter, when she was little, really liked wiping cabinets. So you can absolutely start some type of chore routine when they're younger. And my kids have responsibilities that they are, again, I'll link up above, their kid chore routine that they're responsible for. And then they also have the option of doing additional chores to earn money. And that's if the additional chores are that zone cleaning list. So my kids are wiping down walls, they're doing baseboards, they're dusting, they're doing all those things on that list to earn extra money. And again, everybody should be contributing in the house. But there are things that I specifically, so I do 20-minute increments of cleaning, just 20 minutes, and I do it Monday through Friday. I do not do it Saturday and Sunday because that's my, I don't have to clean during the weekend, and that's important because if you do these small increments, your house isn't a disaster. So when you get to Saturday, it's not laundry's piled up everywhere, dishes are piled up everywhere, the house is destroyed. You've done little amounts throughout the week, and definitely get your children involved in helping you with these amounts. So there are certain things I do that need to be done on a weekly basis, just because I can't wait a month to, clean the bathrooms. That's just not possible. So what I choose to do, things I focus on: Monday, I always water the plants in the house. Tuesday, I always dust. So I have a 2-story house. So one week I'll dust the lower half of the house. The next week I'll do the upper, and it just switches back and forth. And that's just an old house. It gets dusty really easily. Wednesday, I always clean out the fridge, so that means expired food. I have this weird pet peeve where I don't like expired food or leftovers that haven't been eaten in time sitting in my fridge. It just grosses me out. So I always go through, do a quick run through of leftovers that didn't get eaten in time, and then I do a quick wipe of my fridge with just a cloth, some soap, wipe it off so it looks clean and it doesn't get all grubby. And again, doing that once a week, the inside of my fridge sparkles. I don't have to do any of that crazy deep cleaning, take everything out, scrub the shelves, because I'm doing that quick, it's called a home blessing, quick, easy thing. I'm doing that quick, easy cleaning, so in the long term, I don't have to do a deep clean. So I do that, and then I Lysol all the highly touched surfaces in my house. And that's really important, especially during winter, during flu season. We have pneumonia going around, RSV in this town. So it's really important, and I think it is helpful because my kids, knock on wood, haven't contracted any of those crazy things going around, because I do doorknobs, light switches, remotes, the switch, the kid's tablet. I'll wipe all those down with disinfectant, and it really does help with the germs, and especially if one kid's sick, it really does help, so it doesn't spread to everyone else. Thursday, I do 1 or 2 things. I do meal planning, because I do meal planning. I do grocery shopping on a weekly basis, which I'll get to next. Meal planning is one I'm going to talk about. But I sit down and I figure out what we're going to eat for the week, and this is not a long process. And I'll get into that when I talk about meal plan. And then the other thing is I will do a deep cleaning, or I'll do sheets and bedding. So one week I'll do all the bedding in the house. And then the next week I'll do a deep cleaning project. So this past week my deep cleaning project was the toaster oven. It was looking really gross and grimy. And it sits on our counter and everybody sees it. I'm like, it needs to get cleaned. So that was my deep cleaning project, because I didn't do bedding this week. Next week I'll do bedding, and then I won't have a deep cleaning project that I'm trying to do that Thursday. And then Friday is 2 things. I do grocery shopping on Friday. And then my husband, actually, again, contributing, does the bathrooms on Friday. So he'll take care of the mirrors, he'll take care of the sinks, the toilets, the trash, changing out the hand towels, all that. And again, he is the one that primarily works outside this house, but that doesn't mean he can't contribute as well. I think that's really important. I think as moms, we tend to take things on a lot by ourselves and kind of guilt ourselves that we're the ones home. This is our responsibility, but you can only do so much as one person. Then make sure you're communicating to your partner areas that they can help. And this is one of the areas he can help clean the bathrooms. And then the only thing we do on the weekends is we vacuum and mop. And this is a team effort with my husband and I. Saturdays, and again, if we have something planned or we don't have time, then it just gets switched to the next week. It doesn't have to necessarily be done every single week, but I do prefer to vacuum and mop because we have a 2-story house. One week will be the lower half of the house gets vacuumed and mopped, but the bathrooms always get vacuumed and mopped no matter what. And then the second week will be the upper level of my house. But things that are always vacuumed and mopped on a weekly basis, unless we have something scheduled, is the kitchen, because it gets really gross. The family room, because that's where the kids always play on the floor and there's crumbs and stuff everywhere. And the bathrooms are always done, vacuum and mop every week, just to keep my house clean. And again, I have a little robot vacuum, so I'll just set that little thing off. And I'm responsible for vacuuming. My husband's responsible for mopping. That's how we kind of divvy up the workload. But it does help. And there are some times he's working on Saturdays and he can't mop, and then I'll do both. But again, communicating to your partners, your family members, where they can help is really important. They're not mind readers. They're not going to necessarily do it unless you explain that you need help. But that does really help because my house is clean on a consistent basis. And people can come over at any point. I don't have to rush and clean and worry about, what they're going to think about the grime or any of that, because my house is clean. And it's important that for my mental stability that I'm not in a super cluttered environment. I don't work well with that. So having these systems in place and kind of distributing the workload among everybody, not just myself, really does help keep my house clean. So that's how I'm homeschooling and my house isn't falling apart. Next is meal planning. So like I said, every Thursday I sit down in a meal plan, and I do it on a weekly basis just because my kids go through a crazy amount of fruit, cheese, eggs, and milk. So I'd be going on a weekly basis to replenish those things anyways, just because they go through it so quickly. So I've just gotten to the point where I do a weekly grocery shop on Friday, and I do that because my local grocery store gives you extra fuel points for shopping on that day. So whatever you spend that day goes towards fuel points, which helps with the price of gas. So I will sit down and we'll go over the flyers for my grocery store. And I usually only go to one. I go to Kroger and Aldi occasionally. Aldi's more snack type items. I'm not a big fan of shopping at Walmart, especially for gluten-free stuff. They do have some stuff, but I find it much easier to shop a smaller grocery store, and they tend to have better products for our specific needs, dietary needs as our family. And with coupons and fuel points, it really is cheaper than going to Walmart for us. But I will just sit down, write breakfast for 5 days, lunch for 5 days, and dinner for 7 days. Lunches and breakfast are more up in the air during the weekend, more free, but I do make a plan for Monday through Friday. And again, breakfast is just a rotation. It's eggs, toast, yogurt, fruit, waffles, pancakes, a different form of egg. So one day we'll have hard-boiled egg, next we'll have scrambled or omelets or something like that. Oatmeal and smoothies. So it's just a rotation of those things, nothing crazy. Same thing with lunches. I have lunch videos on my channel, you can check it out, but there's always peanut butter and jelly, there's always lunch meat, there's always what I call a snacky lunch, kind of like a buffet or different snack items. There's grilled cheese and mac and cheese, there's all these options, right? I have a long list in my binder and I'll just pick out those things for the week, and depending on if certain things are on sale, I might choose those. There's always a fruit, there's always a vegetable. And I do make my lunches normally, except on Wednesdays, because my husband's home during the afternoon to feed the kids lunch, so I don't do it. But normally I will make their lunches in the morning, and that just makes things a lot easier because I'm making sure they're getting all those, fruits, vegetables, not just, if I send them to the kitchen to get their own food, they'll come up with, all the junk food and not have any actual protein or anything good, nutritious for them. So planning ahead is helpful, and then when I make them in the morning, they're good to go, that when they finish school, they can just go have their lunch and they don't have to wait for me if I'm working with another kid. So that does really help with the flow. And then dinners is just a rotation of things. I do try Saturdays to try different recipes or things I want to try because I have more time in the kitchen. Monday through Friday and Sunday are a lot more chaotic in my house. But it's just a rotation of different types of, I start with a protein, so we'll always have chicken on Monday, but what that chicken is varies. Is it fried chicken? Is it honey butter chicken? Is it chicken salad? It can be so many different forms. We always have tacos on Sunday, or nachos, depending on what my husband makes. And he always makes lunch or dinners on Sunday because that's my night not to cook, because that's my kind of rest day, which I'll talk about in my, time for myself. But again, including him and making dinners, we usually have fish once a week. He'll make the fish as well. I'm not very good at making fish. But it's just a rotation of meals. My family really likes to eat the same things. They don't like a lot of variations, but I do kind of reserve Saturday for trying new meals or different recipes. And then Saturday and Sunday we always have cereal for breakfast just because we have church, cereal and fruits. We have to get out the door. But just having a simple system like that, it doesn't have to be super complicated. It doesn't have to be like Pinterest or whatever people are doing these days. Just sit down. What food do your family like to consistently eat? And just plug it in. So the last one is, so I have homeschooling planned and figured out. I have cleaning planned and figured out. I have meal planning figured out. Next would be, after all that, how do I find time for myself? Well, the trick is, if you have all those other things scheduled and you figure out when you're doing those things, you can figure out when you can stick time in for yourself. Like that December day in the life, I spent 2 hours that day, that Monday, reading. And how did I have 2 hours? Because I didn't have laundry to do, I didn't have dishes to do, I didn't have a deep cleaning project to do. All those things were already accomplished. Homeschooling was done. So I find it really hard, especially after homeschooling day, to sit down and clean. There are some times that I didn't get time to do my 20-minute cleaning in the morning, that I'll do it after homeschool, but I don't have these huge cleaning projects I have to do because I'm tired. Homeschooling takes a lot of work, energy, and effort, and mental load on you, that it's the more you can take off your plate, the easier things, the more automatic things are, that okay, I don't have to scrub the kitchen floors today because I'm going to do that scheduled on Saturday. I don't have to worry about it right now. And that to me is really helpful. And then specifically on Sundays, I do schedule time for myself. I don't use my phone. I try not to use my phone until later in the night. And that's a tip I have too. You'll see in the day in the life, I don't mess with my phone in the morning. I don't get up and check my emails and Facebook and socials and all those, because it's starting your day draining. And I get that some people have, jobs and things that they have to do that, and that's a little different than my experience. I can not touch my phone and it'll be okay. It's not affecting everybody's lives. But I find it draining and distracting, and it's easy to doom scroll. And when I'm taking time for myself, I'm not doom scrolling. Sometimes I'll watch YouTube videos. I'll admit that, but usually I try to get on the exercise bike when I'm doing that as motivation. But most of the time I'm reading. And specifically on Sunday, I try to do something creative, whether that be art. I'll insert a picture. This last Sunday, I was working on drawing a pig, and it was funny because I was using watercolor and then sketching, and then I'm learning how to use kind of marker or pen over what you watercolored to kind of bring out the features more. And when I finished, the pig looked so angry, and I don't know why the pig looked so angry. I was looking at a picture, the pig was so happy in the picture, but somehow it's a joke in my house that whenever I create animals, they're really angry looking. So I just made a little plate of bacon in front of the pig, and I was like, okay, that's why he's angry. He's angry because you're eating bacon, and he's protesting that. It's protest art. So, but that was really fun. I really enjoyed it, even though it didn't turn out exactly how I wanted to. The process was still fun, and I think it's really important to feed that part of ourselves, that we're not just moms, we're not just cleaners, we're not just homeschoolers, we're people with interests and hobbies, and we need to feed those areas of our lives too. Again, talking about kind of the longevity of ourselves, taking care of ourselves, and how important that is. And that's something I've started to prioritize in my life, and it's not something I was always great at prioritizing. I was the person that put myself last, and I'm always running around crazy. But it comes a time where you realize you can't, that's not sustainable. Especially as I, approach 40, there are things that just don't work like they used to. My stress level, I can't handle stress the way I used to in my 20s and early 30s. I have to take care of myself because nobody else is going to prioritize me if I don't prioritize me. So it's really important to take that time and find that time. And it's much easier to find that time if you know when everything else is happening. And I'm sure there are some people who'd be like, wow, your life is really boring. It seems so scheduled and routine and consistent. But do you know what my life isn't? It's not overwhelming. It's not stressing me out. I'm not burnt out from homeschooling or life or kids and all that because I'm doing all the things I need to. I'm accomplishing my goals. I'm having consistency in homeschooling. My house is consistently clean. I'm not stressed out. I'm not freaking out. And most importantly, I'm not feeling guilty. There's so much guilt with being a mom that we're not finishing our homeschooling curriculum, or we didn't get to what we were supposed to, or the house is a disaster, or the kids had sandwiches for dinner. There's a lot of guilt put on us. And I don't have that guilt at the end of the day. There are days, yeah, I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? Everybody has those days that will never go away. But most of the time, I'm ending my day feeling really good about what I've accomplished. That homeschooling is done, the kids have learned, they've progressed, they're doing really well. I don't have to spend all my day cleaning, I don't have to spend all my day cooking, I don't have to spend all my day doing all these little things, because as mothers, we do give a lot of ourselves into these things. I'm not saying that's not worthy, that's not important things, but I'm saying that making sure those aren't the only things you're giving your energy into is important. And in order to reach a place where you can find that time for yourself, you gotta know when the other things are happening. At least for me, that has been the biggest help for me, is knowing, okay, if this is happening then I don't have to worry about it now. If I know we're doing homeschool right away, I'm not feeling guilty at the end of the day that we didn't get everything done. So this is kind of how I organize and balance everything in my life to kind of get it, I mean, it will never really all be done, but get the areas done that need to get done, that I'm able to prioritize my time where it needs to be. And sometimes that means prioritizing myself, but that doesn't mean I'm skipping a homeschooling day or two for self-care. It means I'm still homeschooling, but making sure that self-care is scheduled in as well. You can do all these little things you want to do if you have a plan. At least that's how I approach it, that these things can be done. You can prioritize your time, get the things you want accomplished if you have a plan. So that is kind of how I organize everything, how I schedule, how I create routines. I hope that is helpful. Again, don't feel the need to replicate exactly what I'm doing. Find what works for you, what works for your family, and don't forget yourself in that equation, because it's really important as well. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. If not, thank you for watching.